Hey, welcome to my enchanted glade. The Star Wars is pretty crap. Ow! Ugh! Who brings a brick to an enchanted bloody glaive? What's wrong with you? Oh. So, growing up, it was probably easy to assume, and probably was assumed by many people, that those sci-fi movies were right up my alley. After all, I consume fiction. I like Dungeons and Dragons, and I emotionally close myself over people falling into those hobbies and being, quote, a bit too much, whatever that means. But yeah, you'd be wrong. I mean, the main fact of the matter is, I'm a bit stupid. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch of legitimate reasons to hate these films, but my gripes tend to dwell with the fact that I have the brain of a toddler licking toilet cakes in a public bathroom where a sad, neglectful parent screams at them while trying to apply makeup in a mirror. And while the root cause is usually the same, I can still break down my disdain into categories for you all to enjoy. Or you could click away. I mean, come on, man, you're already a minute in. Don't be a dick. This is probably my usual initial problem with these Star Trek Wars movies, is that they all look so bloody dull. I mean, I get that the cost of production for that era and the mechanical stuff not looking necessarily interesting doesn't help, but I mean, their colour schemes are white, grey, and black. No, you're right, of course. Wouldn't want to overload the senses. I mean, those are basically all the colours in the fucking rainbow. And don't even get me started on their locations. I mean, you get me started a little bit. What is it with 20th century sci-fi writers and setting their screenplays in deserts? I mean, I know what you're going to say. But yeah, it's the blending of a desert world to represent the protagonist's anguish about being in a dead-end world. Yeah, well, that's no excuse. Pick a different angle. I mean, if you can afford to fly out to Tunisia, you can afford to fly to somewhere like South America, where their landscapes already look like alien planets. And I wouldn't be as annoyed by this if they didn't keep up this trope in modern day sci-fi films. I mean, we have CGI now, I think. I mean, I know it's hard to model and rig a bunch of alien flora, but I mean... Actually, I don't really have a counter to that. Next category. Okay, so this is probably a extension to the previous point, but man, were there so many sci-fi scripts that were just veiled metaphors for politics, am I right? But, unlike the last point, I don't innately hate the idea of a politically driven narrative. But when you're met with the limitless of space, where every planet presents a new species and cosmic powers, where each globe can be its own setting, why are you writing scripts about political parties that somehow control entire solar systems and that either stand for Nazis or the Soviet Union? Again, not against films based on metaphors for political machinations, and I can see that the Cold War and World War II were kind of easy targets for innate villains at that time. But every movie was a peace treaty or a trade dispute on a grey geometric landscape or on a desert planet. I mean, it really salts my apples. Fun fact, I wanted to be a zoologist when I was younger, but after the first year of secondary school I realised science wasn't exactly in my future. Maybe disliking science was probably the foundation of why I dislike science fiction. Or maybe it's because sci-fi goes above and beyond with unnecessary explanations that, let's be honest, don't even factor into the main plot. Okay, taking aside problematic authors, do you know what makes media like Harry Potter and the Tolkien universe fun? The fact they don't take you aside for 10 minutes to deliver a lecture on how magic is generated. I mean, maybe they do in a Silmarillion, I don't know, I haven't read that book. But with sci-fi, it's like they risk a SWAT team bursting in if they don't explain where their space magic comes from, in a vague enough way that includes either cybernetics or chemical terminology. Personally, I think the reason for the inclusion of these unnecessary explanations was because humanity was still abuzz about the futures of technology, which doesn't really hold up today. In modern day, looking into the future requires you to get into the crash position and break out into a silent prayer. I mean, if you look at a lot of trends in modern sci-fi movies, the hope they give you for the future is getting off Earth because we screwed it up so much. That's not exactly putting a hopeful spin on things. And obviously, I know there's a whole bunch of movies out there that avoid these tropes. And from what I've seen of those movies, yeah, I like them. I mean, even stuff from those early franchises, the latest stuff they've put out is mostly good. Mostly. And hey, maybe some of you are still a little bit unsatisfied. Like, I started this whole argument talking about Star Wars, it's in the thumbnail. Maybe you didn't like that. But I didn't like a brick being thrown in my face. Now get out! You creep! Get out! Subscribe on your way out and hit the like. And then get out! God! It's so fucking hurt. It's gonna leave a mark. I hate you. What are you still doing?